Again for TV. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for February. At this time, everybody please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so, roll call. Ms. Hall is here, Ms. Delvecchio is here, Mr. Silver's here, Mr. Kroll is here, Mr. Cousins is here, Mr. Deacon is here, and I'm here. Is that good? And welcome to your first meeting, Mr. Kroll. Thanks for joining us, the new alternate on your side. Welcome. So, we're going to go into the public hearing, and we've been asked, and I said it would probably be a good thing. I'll take a motion from the floor to go take the agenda out of order, and we will do the 824 referral first because it could be a little lengthy, and we'll clear that off the agenda. So can I have a motion to move that up first? Move seconded. Ms. Delvecchio, any questions? None? All in favor? Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you. All right, so we are going to start with the 824 referral, municipal improvements referral, report to the town council regarding the location of a senior and community center on the town-owned property commonly known as 5958 Main Street. Do me a favor, just do name and add all that stuff for the record, and then I want to make a statement before you.
Press the button. Hi, my name's Lori Hayes O'Brien. I'm the chairperson of the Community Facilities Building Committee. I'll just do some quick introductions of names for who will be presenting. As you mentioned, we're here for a 24 referral. With us tonight is Tom Arcari and Rocco Petito from QA&M Architecture, and also Thomas Wamser from Ty & Bond, who did our traffic study. They'll do a short presentation whenever you're ready, and obviously we're all here to answer any questions.
Yeah, we're ready now, but I'm just going to give the overview for some folks in the crowd that have already heard it and understand what's going on, and some people may be here for the first time to speak for or against or comment on the application. 824 applications are presented by the town for 3 reasons, either for purchase, sale, or major development. And it comes to the Planning and Zoning Commission, which we all understand, and it comes to us for a recommendation. It's not really an approval process, it's just a recommendation to the town council. For those that don't know, the town of Trumbull, like most towns in Connecticut, is not subject to the planning and zoning regulations of the town. The town council controls what does or doesn't get built on town land. So as part of this process, the 824 does come in front of planning and zoning for a recommendation. And that recommendation, either we recommend or we don't recommend. And it still goes to the town council. It just affects the amount of the number of votes that they need. If we vote to recommend, the town council needs a majority. If we vote not to recommend, the town council would need a supermajority to pass it. And what are we deciding? On the recommendation, this is the part that sometimes there's a little lack of clarity. So when 824 referral comes like tonight, the Planning and Zoning Commission's job is to review the usage, okay? So what the presenters are going to do, they're going to present the intended usage, which is what we're going to decide at basically the 10,000 foot level, not to use an overused metaphor, but it is the 10,000 foot level of usage. We don't opine or decide on intensity, sizes of buildings, where the driveways are, what the exact usage is inside the building, anything like that. That has nothing to do with it. Just the overall usage. Now tonight we may see some more lower level detail being presented so we get a good flavor of it, but the lower level detail that we see is not the criteria that we're basing our decisions on. It's only going to be based on whether do we think this overall use fits or doesn't fit for this piece of property. That's my overview. Feel free to begin.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Tom Arcari. I'm principal with Quisenberry Arcari. Is that first? Public comment first?
Yeah, no. the presentation happens, staff comments happen,
Thank you.
commissioners, it's run, yeah, that's an okay question. It's still going to be run like a regular application, even though it's a referral. They will present. Staff, I will ask them for their report. The commissioners will interact and ask questions, maybe even during the presentation. When that's complete, the part I left out was 824 referrals are not subject to public comment because they are not public hearings, but I have chosen through all the public comments that have, or excuse me, of all the 824s that have happened to allow public comment, and we will tonight. I have a little speech for the public comments I'll save when that portion starts.
Great, thanks. Once again, Tom Arcari, principal with Quisenberry, Arcari, and Malik Architecture. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be back tonight. We are presenting a project to you that the building Trumbull Senior and Community Center Building Committee has been working on. It's a proposed new senior and community center at the Grace Church parcel on Main Street. For the sake of brevity, I will make the whole presentation. I have my entire staff here this evening to answer questions about the project. Site civil engineering, technical architecture, and our traffic engineers here as well. This is the existing parcel, as you can see on the screen, on Main Street. It currently has, it is the parcel that is unshaded. It is hammer-shaped in the middle. North is up the page. In the center of the site is the existing church. To the upper left is the existing daycare program. And to the far right of the site, at the back of the site, is an existing rectory building. All three of those buildings would be removed as a part of our proposal to develop the new senior community center. We have an existing survey for reference. One of the things I'd like to point out is that a significant portion of the site is paved or covered with impervious materials, including structures, and our development really only increases that by about 10%. This is a proposed site plan, and this is one of the more technical plans, shows the grading and allocation. We are proposing a new 2-story senior and community center. It would be walkout on 2 levels. The property pitches off to the back of the site or the right of the site here. We would be reusing the existing curb cut on the south of the site. You'd come onto the site, circulate north through a drop-off lane, and then access the second entrance and drive at the north of the site. The access drive on the north end of the site, that curb cut would be moved further away from the intersection of Main Street and Churchill Road. We are going to provide an entrance lane and then 2 egress lanes. So there's a left-hand turning lane and a right-hand turning lane. This is a 2-way drive which would proceed to the lower portion of the site, the back of the site. There's a retaining wall on the north side of the site. You proceed down about 18 feet in total grade change, which gives you access to parking at the rear of the site, an exterior patio at the back of the site, and then entrance to the lower level of the site, the lower level of the building. The building itself would be fully handicap accessible at all levels. We are proposing a fixed amount of parking of approximately 110 cars with another approximate 45 cars of overflow parking, which would be lawn or grass parking. We've done a study of the site from the perspective of utilities, infrastructure, and storm drainage. This is not a detailed presentation, but it demonstrates that this site will not only accommodate the building and the program and the traffic and the parking and the pedestrians, but it will also support all of the infrastructure. The proposal would be to accommodate capture of all the stormwater, treat it, and then infiltrate it in the site. Additionally, we can accommodate access of all services, water, gas, and fire, and electricity. One of the things I'd point out is shown on this diagram. To the very far right of the site is a circle. There is a small wetlands area on the site. We are not doing any work within the regulated area. We will be having informal conversation with Conservation Commission, but none of the work affects that area or any of their regulated areas. As a part of our process, we've met with town staff, engineering, building, fire marshal, public safety, and this diagram demonstrates that public safety vehicles can service the building here on this site. There are no impediments to fire safety access or life safety access at both levels of the building. The fire marshal has given us our blessing after making comments, as well as our proposed plan incorporates all of the comments we've received from staff, which included adding parking spaces or adding pedestrian sidewalks along the frontage of the site and pedestrian access to the building from the street edge, adding a green space at the south, which is the bottom right corner of the left side of the site, and making sure that all of the site supports enough room to provide adequate buffers to the adjacent neighbors. We have listened to a significant amount of public input over the last 6 months regarding development on this site, and we've taken a significant amount of the neighbors' concerns to heart and improved our overall development. This is just an aerial photo showing our proposed site juxtaposed over the satellite photo of the site. You can see to the south of our proposed development is the Long Hill Place Active Adult Community. This is a 55 and older community. We believe that the addition of a senior community center directly adjacent to this center is a strong complement to the neighborhood and the community. As a part of the traffic study and comments we received from the town police commission, they are recommending a pedestrian connection from this from the front of the Grace Church site along the DOT right-of-way to connect with the sidewalk that intersects the Churchill Road intersection. That would create a pedestrian connection between the Grace Hill Church and the town campus, as well as the other amenities that are in that area, and allow for safe pedestrian crossing at the Churchill Road intersection. That's a proposal that we believe is viable. The town facilities and engineering staff believes is viable, and they support. Just for your edification, the building will have 2 stories. The upper level, and in this orientation, Main Street is at the top of the page. The upper level will support mostly senior center functions. So when you enter, there is administration and human services in the upper right corner, game room in the bottom right corner, and the soft classroom is purple in the upper left corner next to the entrance. There are multifunction rooms in blue. There is a large multi-purpose room in the bottom left. This is a room that can be divided into 3 spaces, serve all sorts of program activities, and seat approximately 200 for a sit-down presentation. And then there's a full-service kitchen, commercial kitchen in green. The lower level of the plan, which egresses to the back of the site, would have a central spine entrance, which connects to the upper level entrance, a grand stair. In blue, there's a large arts and crafts programming space. To the left of the entrance in reddish orange is the food pantry and human service components. And then to the left of the plan would be a gymnasium that supports senior and recreation activities. The building would be a two-story building built into the existing grade. Here are the proposed elevations of the building. You can see along Main Street, it is essentially a one-story building. It'll be, with the roof pitches, it'll be essentially, let's call it 1.5 stories in total height. And at the back of the building, it's a full 2-story high structure. We anticipate the building would have a stone base, residential siding features, and trim to meet the scale and nature of the neighborhood. And these are some additional elevations of the ends of the building. This is a 3D model of what the front of the building might look like. You can see from the street again, it's a 1-story-ish structure. You can start to see that the building will have a well on top of it in the center. All of the mechanical units for the building will be sit down in that area, will be visually concealed from the street and from the neighbors, as well as auditorily concealed. And then this is a view from the back of the site. Shows you the exterior patio at the back of the site. Also gives you another look at what the scale, scope, and nature of the building will be. As a part of our exercise, we put together renderings demonstrating what the buffers to the adjacent properties would look like. The neighbors had significant concerns about the presence of this facility directly in their rear yard, especially on the north side of the site. And we're proposing not only a significant retaining wall to support the access drive, but on top of the retaining wall, a secondary wall, like a stone wall, with plantings on both sides of it. So you can see that we're making significant efforts to buffer the development to the neighbors along Edgewood Avenue. And then here is a view from the back of the site, looking at the building on the left and the approach to the exit. And you can see again the buffer is supported in a strong way. We did a full traffic impact assessment that we presented to the Traffic Commission last night. We received full approval from the entire commission. Some of the comments that they had made previously in their staff review had been incorporated by our team, as well as some comments we had heard from members of the community. The traffic assessment, in simple terms, investigated an area that stretched from Churchill Road to the intersection at Lawn Ave and Turnkey Place. Our site is the site hatched in red. The traffic usage and trip generation was based on comparison of very similar facilities here in the state of Connecticut, as well as the standard data for a facility of this nature. The study indicated no significant patterns of collision history at those, and that's patterns of collision history at the major intersections. One of the things pointed out by the study was that the thoroughfare in front of the building is wide enough that the site supports pedestrian access, bicycle access, of course vehicle access, but there's also a bus station right in front of the site, public bus station. Bus stop, not station. So public transportation is accessible to the site as well. And then overall, the report indicated that there was no significant impact on the artery or the intersections. And one of the things they pointed out was that the location was excellent because the sight lines greatly exceed the minimum required sight lines from egressing the facility, which is a positive for the development of a senior center. We have some data about the traffic counts. This was all reviewed by the Traffic Commission, and it was all approved unanimously. So that's what we're planning to do. We think this is an exceptional site. There's nothing that presents life safety issues, programmatic issues, access issues. We believe this site supports senior and community center in a positive way. It'll be a positive addition to the town campus and will provide a strong amenity for the community. If you have any questions, I have my full staff here tonight, and we can deal with any details you might have.
Thank you. Rob, you want to give us any report that you have on this before we go around the room to the commissioners?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was there last night at the Police Commission meeting. I did receive approvals from the commission. I believe it was unanimous. One of the statements that the applicant said, the consultant said, was that he met with all staff. He hasn't met with planning and zoning staff, only Hardy Lane.
Say that again?
He hasn't met with planning and zoning staff,
Who?
the consultant.
Oh, okay.
So he met with us for Hardy Lane, but we haven't met with him for this site.
Okay.
So that being said, I just would like to meet with them
Okay.
after that. And there's just a few comments here. Location-wise, is this commission is supposed to look at the location? Perfect, I think, location, centrally located to where it is right now. Easily accessible to all municipal, or mostly all of the municipal amenities, the library, town hall, our grocery store. It's all walkable to this location as well, too. They're going to be putting sidewalks. So it backs up to the state property. There's no trail access due to the topography, but at least we're backing up to a state property that's safe for no development as of right now. One of the things I would like to see is just a photometric plan showing that. With the property, there's just no exterior lighting going beyond the property. And also the access from the road to the 55 and over almost lends itself for a connection between this project and the existing residents. So I think the location is a great location. I know that the consultant, when he was asked at the traffic commission meeting, did you design the traffic for senior center or community center? And I believe he stated both. So this is the most highly intense numbers that they've shown us and that they're showing. So other than that, Mr. Chairman, I think it's a great location from my point of view. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else who needs to present about this?
Rena Bachelor, Director of Economic and Community Development. Thank you to the Commission. I was asked to, just from my perspective as Economic and Community Development Director, to draft a memo, as I've done for previous sites on previous projects, just talking about the economic and community development benefits of the site. I've done that. I'll submit it. I won't get into all of the details, except to say that the architect touched on a lot of the issues that I look at. Central location, infrastructure, connectivity, adjacencies to other amenities, commercial amenities, connecting assets, that kind of thing. So I laid that out in the memo, but I also want to say that, this property has been familiar to me. The church abandoned it but decided to no longer use it when they collaborated with another congregation and moved to Monroe. All along, they had wanted to see what they could do to use this property to create a sustainable financial resource for the congregation, which we can all understand many churches are doing that. They hired a development firm that was very familiar with church properties. They did come out and meet with me numerous times about this site. I continued to tell them what we did not want to see there in terms of high-rise type rental properties. Those kinds of things were not things that we wanted to see along Main Street. We didn't want the property to have those kinds of intrusions. They came up, despite those comments and us reviewing the plan of conservation development, they had proposed two potential things to us. One was an 84-unit, 4-story rental apartments that was age restricted for active adult, on the site. The other was a 63-unit, 3-floor condominium building with 12 townhouses and an additional 4 residents on the site. Both proposals, in my opinion, were not in keeping with the neighborhood and what we wanted to see. I see this as a much more modest use, although the community may still have some objection. That always happens, no matter what the site. But it's a much more modest use than what could have happened did the town not acquire the property. So I'll leave this here for submission into the record. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so I'll go around the room to the commissioners if there's any questions or comments at this point, or questions of the presenters. Mr. Silber, you want to go first?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for the record, I am on the building committee for this project, so I know a lot about it, but just wanted to share that. For the architect, Tom, can you tell me how many other sites were considered?
Well, we've been doing this study for 10 years. We started in 2015, and at least a dozen, if not close to 24 total town-owned sites have been studied over the last 10 years.
I'm gonna
Yep.
just say one thing. One of the things I'm gonna frame for us here tonight is this application is for the usage of this property. One of the things that we don't want to get into is the comparison for should this use be put somewhere else, right? Not that that's not a valid conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that clarification. My point in asking that question is you can't recommend a use of a site unless you know what the alternatives were.
Correct.
So
Right.
I think it's relevant in that sense.
In that framework, that's fine. Yeah, I just don't want the public coming up and saying
I
this should
understand.
be somewhere
No,
else.
I'm not going to go
Yeah,
afield on
right,
this. I
right.
just had a couple of things.
Okay, thanks.
And the architect gave me the answer. This is to Rob Lebrandi as a professional planner. Can you tell me whether retail, commercial, and even high-density residential is a more intense kind of a use in general as a planner?
If commercial is more of an intensive use than this property, in this property,
Well, yeah, my somebody told me once that commercial, because we were looking at Lower Main Street across from the mall, and there was talk about putting in, high density residential, and the consultant that we were using at the time said that high density residential is a very, very intense use. People are coming and going all the time.
yes.
You agree with that?
I think yes, because I believe the hours of activity there are much higher.
Right.
So I think something like this that's stated that the hours of operation are from this time to this time, I think it'll clean up the area, or there'll be less traffic sooner
Yeah.
than a controlled area. But I'd probably have to defer to my supervisor as well too.
Can I just... Rena Baclar, Director of Economic and Community Development. Yes, we commonly look in economic development and in planning at the intensity of uses. So the highest generation is usually commercial, and office being an extremely high generator because everybody, is flooding in, visitors are coming to the day, flooding out, and commercial. And residential tends to have regular residential scale has a lower, but certainly something high density residential would have a different impact. So the answer is yes to your question. This is not as intense as could be a 30,000 square foot commercial grocer. We have a project in another part of town, commercial grocer, restaurants, urgent care center, and a commercial strip mall would have a much higher intensity on this site than something like what's proposed here.
And the same, I'm sorry, Ms. Baclar, does the same apply to high-density residential? I think it does. I think you said that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
high-density residential is not as high of a driver as
Commercial.
what I just
Yeah.
explained,
Yeah.
but it's certainly more than what a traditional neighborhood would experience with single-family homes. You know, and then age-restricted housing tends to be a
I'm
little
sorry.
bit lower.
Yeah, thank you. I think the chairman's getting impatient, so.
No. What I want, I need to repeat myself because I know you were on the building committee, and these are great questions at the building
I
committee.
just have one more.
I need to finish because we don't want to get into, and if not this, what could it have been? Because we're only under the scope of this project being approved or recommended or not. We don't want to go down the comparison road. That's the building
if you-
committee and the town council.
I understand, and thank you for the clarification again. My point is, you can't decide, you can't vote on the appropriateness of a use unless you know what it's going to be. You know what I mean? I mean, so you can't say, you know, all right, I want to put in a one-room schoolhouse and it's going to have 6 kids in it.
Right.
That's a little bit different from,
Right.
You know what I mean? That's
Yeah, no,
what I'm-
and I think your point you're getting at, which makes a lot of sense, is the intensity of this use
Yeah.
on this property makes sense,
Yeah.
especially being in a commercial district. And, you know, we have a center of Trumbull, not really the center, is the center. And this area, let's say, is one of the multiple heart chambers of Trumbull. It's right here on a state highway. So those are the types of things that we're discussing here tonight.
All right, you know, I'm gonna just leave it at that then. I will say that Long Hill Village probably qualifies as a very high intensity use. So my only point here is that if you're going to have a municipal neighbor, a municipal building as your neighbor, you have schools, you have high school bands, you have all kinds of things that are much higher intensity than a senior center where you have, you know, senior folks, myself included, you know, playing pickleball. I mean, it's not a high intensity use by any definition. So
Right,
that's all.
absolutely. Very good. Okay. Did you want to say something to him on that?
Nope, I'm just
Oh, all
here to
right.
answer
I
questions.
didn't know what that move was. All right. I'll go back and forth. Mr. Deacon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, so first thing, we mentioned that there was going to be a conversation with the Conservation Commission. I should point out that the Conservation Commission is not binding. It's a nice thing to do, but their
I'm
purview
part
and
of the
their
approval process.
right, their purview is somewhat limited. Their mandate is very limited. There was no Southwest Conservation District referral, so there were other steps that could have been taken if conservation was a priority. At this time, it appears, just to clarify, this is going as a full community center, not just the senior center, correct?
It is a community use facility, senior center and community use facility. But if I can clarify, most communities that are now constructing senior/community centers, because it's more of a time issue than a physical issue. The same spaces that serve a traditional senior center, arts and crafts, multifunction, meeting rooms, activity, recreation spaces, are the same spaces you find in a community center. So it's really a center that serves the community as a whole, but its primary function first is a senior center, and then some of the activity spaces and meeting spaces would be used at, as required by community groups for meeting space and activity space.
Okay, so it's not just the senior center.
That's correct.
Okay. And we've seen what it might look like. I understand that we're not going to see a final site design at this step. When is the final site design submitted, and who approves that? Clearly, it's not us.
So that's a really good question. This is just a very conceptual exercise in nature to determine if the site is a viable site. We've put a lot of information into this to evaluate if it's viable, but there would be layers and layers of additional detail and design that would go into this if this project is successful when it ultimately goes to referendum. Then we will do layers of detailed design, schematic design, design development, construction documentation. We will have, back and forth input with staff and essentially get the blessing of staff. But from an approval standpoint, there is no planning and zoning approval.
Okay. The 824 process creates a strange reversal of roles. When we purchase or sell land, inexplicably, the Planning and Zoning Commission approves it. We have nothing to do with the budget. And then when the town wants to build something, suddenly the town council becomes zoning commissioners. So it's somewhat unusual here, but at least we know that we know we're not approving it, but evidently the town council isn't approving it either. It's
Yeah, so,
the final look of it.
yeah, I'm going to say what I think I've been told is that the design comes from the town, goes to the town council. The town council opines the same way we would, what they want, what they do, what they don't. They approve that, and I do believe because of the cost, it's going to the public as well, right?
Right, so the public's going to get a final,
Yeah. The final say on the final product, right?
Can I jump in?
Go right ahead.
Okay. With the referendum step, this changes things a little bit, but the next steps of this are based on conceptual plans. That would go to Board of Finance to decide when a number is attached to this, and then Town Council would have to approve a referendum question. If the referendum is successful, then final plans, as Tom talked about, would be made, and that will go back again to the Town Council.
the town council will make the final determination, not staff.
I think in conjunction, I mean, I think the staff would have something to do with it, but as far as the building committee rules, I believe it's a town council decision.
Okay. Thank you.
They're still going to have to get their building permits and everything
Right.
else.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
All the safety parameters are going to have to be met.
I think part
So-
of the question confusion is just how much detail gets to town council at which step.
Exactly.
Basically.
Yeah. The goal now is to get the conceptual plans, just to have them decide that scope of it and whether that's something they want to put forward to the town and for the town to decide based on that scope. I will say, as Tom has mentioned, we've been working on this for a long time. We don't anticipate a lot of changes. They put a lot of detail into what would be considered conceptual plans. Those fine details that, Rob just addressed and we'll see later on are still going to be very similar to what you're seeing now.
Okay, but there are still several other boards that are going to be looking at this with the opportunity to approve it with changes.
After a referendum, you mean?
Correct.
Yes, it will be, as Rob said, it will be staff, the necessary permits, et cetera, and then a final town council approval.
Okay, thank you.
Every other board that we've had to go to get to this step has already happened. The fire marshal, the traffic commission, those kind of things.
Okay, thank you. And there was a letter here, I forgot the author. It mentioned building size. It mentioned that the Nichols School, which is the current senior center, it has a certain amount of square footage. A lot of it is somewhat superfluous and wasted. It's a school built 100 years ago. It's the twin of the Long Hill School, which we now call the administration building. I'm curious, was the building size based on Nichols School, or was it based on some other metric?
No, the building size was actually based on a programming exercise that has been done numerous times in the last 10 years. We have that data, the town has that data, but we've been at it for 10 years, so it probably hasn't, you haven't seen it. This commissioners might not have seen it. That information is available. Town has it. We could also provide that for you. But a very detailed programmatic study was done working with the senior center, and it was cross-checked by comparing it to other communities of similar nature and then looking at the programs available as well. So we looked at it from 3 different angles to establish the estimated program component. And really, the only program element of the entire building that has been debated is the gymnasium recreation space. What should be the size of that? And that's something that the building committee has decided to move forward with at the size it currently is.
Okay, thank you. Just one other question. There have been references, and I can't speak to the veracity of these references, but to historical significance of this property. Has someone rated it in terms of, I've heard various dates in the 19th century bantered around. Perhaps you could.
There's
enlighten
no
me.
indication that this property sits in a historically significant neighborhood. The property or the buildings are not on the register.
Yeah.
I can't confirm or that the veracity of that statement. I don't know where that came from.
I'm just repeating what I heard others testify. I don't know. That's why I
Yeah.
ask. Okay, and I'm sure there'll be some reference to the hours of this facility.
Not part of this.
At some point, there's going to be.
Yeah, but not part of this process, right?
Not a part of this submission, no.
Okay. Generally, planning and zoning, when we are able to rule on applications, hours are considered as a somewhat integral part of the process. How late can something be opened? I remember a pizza place that opened on Main Street. I can't say the name, but it begins with M and ends in Asimos. And they came and said, well, we can be open till 3 a.m. Because on Google, one of those automated hours said, well, you're open from 3:01 to 2:59, whatever it is. And we said, wait a second. Some overzealous intern had clearly found that list of hours and thought it was legitimate. We quickly changed that. I'm not going to get an answer, but I'd like to know, and I understand that either they don't know or can't calculate it, how late this would be open. As to compare it to whatever would have been open for late night, some type of church facilities.
Right. So I'll just speak to that a little bit and kind of refer back to your initial question about the senior center, community center balance. Our charge, our resolution was, I believe it reads, and I should have it in front of me, but basically a senior center that has community center use. And that's how we've looked at this from the beginning. Our basis of our building was based around, as Tom said, programming of the senior center. We looked at that 3 o'clock every day, a building that could be used, and there are other needs of the town that we should not be closing that building down. As this has developed and evolved, as Tom said, the gym has been probably the most interesting part in making some decisions and listening to the neighbors and their concerns, basically about hours and use, more than probably building size. We've really kind of looked at the programming. At our last meeting, Mrs. DeSora got up and spoke to that. There's a responsibility of the town to keep those hours to something that's reasonable in this neighborhood. Right now, a typical senior center hours, really 9 to 1 with probably 9 to 3 other shorter activities in the afternoon. We do anticipate that there'll be some activities after that from 4 o'clock on. Certainly not in what the conversations we've had, although we make no decisions about use, that will be the town council and the town to decide. We're trying to build it to a part where we've kind of limited it. We shrunk the gym. We actually shrunk the height so that we wouldn't know there would be people there later or older adults there later. It's really kind of a 3 pickleball gym is probably the concept, with some younger kids being able to use it. Made a little bit less parking so that we know that there's not a large amount of people, and that we've been trying to be really conscientious about the hours. As I said, it's not up to the building committee to decide that. We tried to design a building that will accommodate what they need and try to keep in mind that we are still in a neighborhood.
Okay, because I'll conclude just by saying that there was a teen center, and it failed.
Yes.
That building has been there at Indian Ledge Park for decades. I'm 38. It was there
They still use
before.
it, like every now and then. The rec department does still use it, but yes.
Right. Just but if we're bearing in mind a center that is intended for youth use, Trumbull's tried that. It didn't work. That barn was a nice idea. It was a cool idea. It was a cute idea in 1998, and it failed. And now here, I would love to see someone put out the likelihood that a teen center is going to actually be used by teens for its intended purpose.
Yeah, that's not the basis of our programming, I would say. I would say from the beginning of this, when we talked about community use, a lot of it was meeting space. If anybody's tried to schedule a meeting in this building, it's difficult. And for community members to find a spot, whether it's a Cub Scout group or a Boy Scout group or something like that. And now there will be recreational space for some of those kind of different kind of activities that younger kids do. But I don't think any of it, we'd love to have youth groups there because it would be nice if that could be resurrected. But I agree with you. It hasn't been successful in the past. I think with the building, the way it's designed now, gives a lot of flexibility to if times change.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you.
Good? Mr. Cousins?
Yeah, I think just for more clarity on what is in front of me right now compared to what I was looking at last year at Hardy Lane, you mentioned the gym shrunk. What other adjustments have been made to maybe the size of the building or the interior layout of the rooms?
The building is very similar to the building we proposed at the Hardy Lane site. The gym got a little smaller, but we actually moved. We shrunk the footprint left or north to south, and it got a little wider east to west in order to accommodate access drive by the building and in order to accommodate larger buffers to the neighbors on both sides. That was the result of feedback from some of the public comment we received throughout the process.
Okay. Ms. Delvecchio?
Just a question about, and I know this is getting out of our scope, but about the referendum process. So when it goes to referendum, there would be a dollar amount, like we did with Hillcrest. So there would be, you would be basically, to go back to the question of the planning process, it would be pretty along the way by then, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah, I'm good. That's
That's it?
That's it.
Mr. Crow?
I'm also on the building committee, and Tom has been subjected to, I think, enough questions from me in the past, so I don't have any here. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Ms. Hall, any questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
All right, so I'll just make a quick comment, a little bit of reality, a little bit of the philosophical, which is this site is being presented to satisfy a real need from the town. It's centrally located near one of the major heart sections of the town. It's got enough space, and it's on a state highway. And the philosophical part is, unfortunately, wherever any development takes place, there are people who always are not completely comfortable with it. And it is very hard in today's world, but everybody's opinion counts. And we are going to listen to everybody's opinion because I'm going to open it up to the public in a second. But we can't have development and advancement without more traffic. You can't have Starbucks and be the only person who goes there. There's going to be cars. You can't have Trumbull Center with new development without cars. People don't remember when there was a grocery store there, you'd have to drive around in the parking lot for 10 minutes to find a space, right? And then wait 2 light cycles to get out. That's life. If you want development and you want business, it comes with traffic. And one of the things that this commission has done is ask for traffic studies, which we've seen. Traffic studies tell us that the roadways around any development can handle the increased traffic. Wherever this is going to be, there is going to be some increase in traffic in anyone's neighborhood, in anyone's area. And if we put it somewhere, the town chose to put it in the middle of the woods where nobody could access it, there would be complaints. It's nowhere near our houses, and it's too far away. So I am appreciative of the location, and I think it's a good use. So at this time, I don't see a major amount of people here, but I'm still going to do the same thing. I'm going to open it up, whether you're for or against, come on up and state your name and address for the record. And I would just ask if there's multiple for or multiple against. If your statements have already been said by somebody else, just say I agree with what already's been said and whether you're for or against. So I think you're well prepared back there, ready to give an overview of what your position is. Come on up.
Good evening, and sorry for my interruption earlier.
No, that's
I wasn't,
okay.
Aware of the proper order. My name is Richard White. I live at 169 Churchill Road. In preparation for tonight's meeting, I reviewed Ty and Bond's Trumbull Community Center traffic impact study. I also reviewed the last few years of Connecticut DOT traffic data for both Main Street and Churchill Road and the Main Street and Lake Avenue intersections, as well as the Connecticut DOT and Yukon accident databases. I reviewed the building committee's 2 prior traffic studies for Hardy Lane proposed location and the committee's traffic study for the old Churchill Road proposed location. I'm disappointed that only the summary from the traffic impact study was made available to planning and zoning for your preparation this evening and not the full report with details. My comments are based on the full reports. The 3-year 1% annual growth estimate does not align with the last 3 years of growth in the Connecticut DOT data. Estimated growth in our current, I'm not sure if the new one's been approved, POCD, or the new estimated growth in the Board of Education's 10-year district master plan. I'd like to ask that the traffic study be realigned with estimates from the actual town. There are a variety of trip generation models being used for the 4 traffic reports commissioned by the building committee. For Hardy Lane, they tried to use a comparison between Hardy Lane and Woodbridge Community Center, which proved to be flawed. The committee then switched to a model that basically tripled our current senior center numbers for the weekday estimates. At one point, Tom, who you've just heard from, stated, in my opinion correctly, that tripling the current usage is a good estimator of future use based on his experiences with similar projects across the state. For Grace Church, you're still referencing the flawed Woodbridge numbers, but are also using the ITE model for a generic 30,000 square foot community center. I would prefer that the committee and planning and zoning use a more realistic growth model combined with Tom's suggestion to triple the current usages for trip generation in place of the ITE models. Note these first 2 items drive all of the other estimates that are included in the summary that you received. There appears to be a lack of discussion of a crosswalk. For Hardy Lane, I calculated the number of families that live across from Hardy Lane between Middlebrooks and Quality Lane. There's similar numbers of families across from Grace Church. This should be a walkable destination. I know that there's an added cost and delay as you await Connecticut DOT approval, but I'd remind the Commission that the traffic engineer for Hardy Lane stated, quote, if you're expecting 3 pedestrians or 30 pedestrians, you're going to need a crosswalk. Please do not move forward with this project without proper approvals for a crosswalk. At the last building committee meeting, the traffic engineer stated unequivocally that the state would not approve a crosswalk on Main Street for this project. This is a complete contradiction as to what the public was told for the Hardy Lane location. As members of Planning and Zoning know, the segment in front of Grace Church and across from Hardy Lane are identical from a data point of view. They're identical in the Connecticut DOT database and the town POCD. They're the same description. The walking distance required for Grace Church is nearly 50% greater than for Hardy Lane. Why is a crosswalk both required and possible at Hardy Lane and neither required nor possible for Grace Church? I'm still puzzling this. Scale and use case of this project has been discussed. I'm not in a butter of this property or project. However, I'm concerned any time the town of Trumbull attempts to increase the density, scale, or use cases of properties in residential neighborhoods. Listening to the neighbors' public comments about the Grace Church property, I think it's not the scale and use case of the current senior center, but the additional evening and weekend activities that are most concerning. Everyone agrees there is need for additional evening public meeting locations. What is not clear are the Parks and Rec, with offices in the proposed building, needs after hours and on the weekends. Do we use the committee's statement on Parks and Rec usage being minimal with 0 basketball tournaments and maybe the occasional mommy and me class? Or do we use Park and Rec's directors' almost gleeful descriptions of evening, Saturday, and Sunday sports leagues? Do we use a committee member's description of Parks and Rec basketball being a drop-off activity for middle schoolers, or do we use my experience with younger rec basketball players and much higher parent involvement and density? I'd like to thank the First Selectman for clarifying at the last building committee meeting that future potential usage starts and stops with her office. But where is the current usage and predicted usage for this facility? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there, yeah, you can submit that, that's fine. Okay, right, okay. Is there anybody else to speak for or against the project? Okay. Hearing none. Is there any final word?
Yeah, I'd just like to point out that both the Hardy Lane site and the Grace Church site are different sites, and we're not here to compare them. The conditions for each site are such that they're unique, and we're looking at the Grace Church site. I would just point out that in regards to the traffic study and a crosswalk, the traffic engineer's comments were more to the fact that it would be very difficult to get a pedestrian crossing mid-block on Main Street when we could provide, in a more easier fashion, we could provide a pedestrian connection to the Churchill Road intersection, which has signalized vehicular and pedestrian crossing. So that's the safest place to do it, and ultimately that's where we believe it should happen.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of sidewalks. I might be one of the first commissioners 20 years ago to begin that process, so you can bet that's going to be a condition of our discussion in about a minute. So.
Sure, thank you. And I'd also like to point out that we've been collaborative throughout this process all along. I understand that the town is not subject to Planning and Zoning Commission, but we have voluntarily met with staff, met with commissions over the last 10 years that I've been executing this study project. We did miss Planning and Zoning this time. That's my apologies. There were a lot of staff members at that meeting. But we take no exception to making informal meetings or presentations to this committee throughout the process to gather your input and incorporate that into the design process as and if it moves forward.
Right.
So we look forward to working with the town if it's successful. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Commissioners all set? All set? All right, I'll take a motion to close. Ms. Delvecchio, second. Mr. Silber. Motion to recommend, is that out there? Is there a motion to recommend, Mr. Silber? Is there a second? Ms. Delvecchio. Any questions? And for the new alternates, this is the part where only the commissioners have discussion. Any further discussion? On my part, I am going to say, if we do vote to recommend, I would like to add that the stipulation of creating the sidewalk for the entirety of the block as much as humanly possible is highly recommended, along with whatever recommendation comes. You know, it's just makes common sense. So, no further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of recommending? Aye. 1, 2, 3. All those against? 1, 2. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, next item on the agenda is a text amendment for applicant 12 Cambridge Drive Realty LLC is requesting to create Article 2, Section 4.2, Age Restricted Housing Overlay Zone and Industrial Zone IL2 of the Trumbull Town Zone regs to permit age-restricting housing development on properties greater than 5 acres within the IL2 zone. Copy of the regulations on file with Trumbull P&Z office and the Trumbull Town Clerk, file 2418. This is continued from December and January.
Good evening, Commission. Ryan Hoyler, Robinson & Cole, on behalf of the applicant. As you stated, we were back here in December. We made a presentation then. We are happy to go back through things again tonight. Okay. But we do have both the representative of the developer as well as our engineer here in case there are any questions.
Okay, I want to recap for the commission and just tell me, commissioners, if we think we're all in the same place. We heard the presentation. We were ready to go vote if we wanted to. I held the vote, and the applicant was in agreement because 2 commissioners were missing, to give the 2 commissioners time to review the tapes and the minutes to be able to opine and ask any questions if they had any and to be able to vote. So, Mr. Cousins, did you do that, and are you ready to participate?
I did, and I am ready to participate.
Mr. Silber, did you do that, and are you ready to participate?
I did, and I'm ready to participate.
Excellent. Okay. So, at this time, one final time, is there anybody from the public who would like to speak for or against this particular project?
If I may, just real quick before we get to that, Mr. Commissioner, we did have some minor changes to it that we've discussed with the town staff with respect to page 2. I'm going to pull it up real quick. They're very minor changes.
You should have started with that.
I apologize. So we had mentioned the last time, they're not showing here for some reason. Let me see if I can fix that. All right. Okay, so the changes are as follows. In the prior version, we had a typo in here and had mentioned that we needed to replace it with the word projects. It originally said, the buffer requirements of Article 4, Section 4.6 shall not apply to age restricted to residents 55 or older. That was a typo. It meant to say projects. The actual changes, however, are with respect to the maximum building height. We realized that we needed to include both elevator and stairway bulkheads instead of just elevator bulkheads for the exemptions on the ceiling, provided they are not visible from the street. And then additionally, because we did get some feedback on the architecture last time, even though we're really here for the zone text change, we thought that we would want to permit ourselves a little bit of room to deal with architectural comments when they do come up at the site plan process.
Right.
So we wanted to include some language saying minimum setbacks, not including balconies and exterior architectural features attached to the building and within 5 feet of the building.
So that's basically just allowing you to add balconies, and if the balcony encroaches, you get a pass.
As long as it's within 5 feet of the building,
right.
Additionally to add any exterior architectural features.
And that's fine.
Based
Yeah,
on
so the
feedback.
commissioners that weren't here, I caused that because when I looked at their initial rendering in the pre-app, I said, looks great, but it's gotta look more like a housing project instead of a Xerox corporate building. You know, so that's
I
good.
saw it on the video.
Great comeback. I like that. That was good. All right, any other changes?
That's it.
Okay. Commissioners, any final questions for the applicant? Hearing none, is there anybody from the public who'd like to speak for or against? No, seeing none. Staff, anything else?
Yeah, just speaking with Attorney Hoyler, we'd like to see if we can make it a little bit more site specific, or the IL2, so it's not specific to the Monroe Trumbull line. It's only in the south. It'd be, we could say south of the Merritt Parkway and east of Route 25. So we can't do anything on Quarry Road, but that whole other area that's IL2 that we've done the study for gives it the ability.
So that would be under section 4.2.2, under location. Right now it reads, for the purposes of this regulation, the age-restricted housing overlay zone may be applied to properties zoned industrial IL2 and located on parcels of at least 5 acres in size. We'd be happy to add any language the commission wants to add or staff wants to add. If that is to read something like, and must be south of the Merritt Parkway, then we're happy to add that language.
Right. And you're talking about including or not including Quarry Road?
Not including Quarry Road.
Not including it?
So just that whole study area of the IL2 zone, what we've done.
And Quarry Road is in the IL2 zone, right?
Yes. Mhm.
So there's not much left to develop there other than that one storage facility that's fallen through a couple times. And, I don't know why we would restrict it, but they can come back and add it if anybody would want it, I would guess. You want to come to the microphone?
Marina Bacalar, Director of Economic and Community Development. There are two additional, the Quarry Road and the rear of Spring Hill Road, where the Amazon is, Spring Hill Road, that rear section of that industrial zone, not the front of Trefoil, that is also an IL2 zone. So that's why we would further the Quarry Road and that other IL2 zone up on that Spring Hill.
Yeah, no,
area.
that makes sense.
I just
I
wanted to
understand.
be clear that there were two areas.
Right, yeah, no, I was just
I just
wondering why we would even further restrict south of the Parkway. Is there something being protected on Quarry Road?
you never know.
There's
Yeah,
nothing. At
all
this
right, so
time.
I mean, we can leave it like you're suggesting, that's fine. If somebody wants to add or
Yeah, I think if
come
they
in the
wanna
future,
come-
they can
yeah.
worry about it then. All right, so, we'll take those modifications.
Okay.
All right. Go ahead.
I have hard copies if you'd like to just have them in front of
Yeah,
you.
okay. If I could, Counselor, just so when we do the amendment, that we know which sections we're amending. So do
Absolutely.
you have that red line for me?
yes.
So if I could just have that thing.
I have multiple copies.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
You have the south of the Merritt Parkway language in there
I-
too?
That is not in there.
Okay. As presented, as submitted. And read the words. I think we need to read all the words. All right. Okay. So I'm going to ask Attorney Cordone to, in a second. And I'm going to ask Attorney Cordone in a minute to read the amendments so that when we go to the voting, we can just say as presented. So he'll state them for the record. Is there anybody here left who would like to speak for or against this application? Any final questions now from commissioners, now that these comments have just been added?
Just a quick question about setbacks.
Yeah.
4.2.4 talks about bulk. 4.2.4A, it lists building setbacks, building coverage, total lot coverage.
Correct.
Are those consistent with other developments, other zones?
They are. Well, I would note that, first of all, the neighboring properties to the east of the development, which are in the residential zone, have a 20-foot setback. And these setbacks are similar to the other overlay zones that are within the IL2 zone that have between 50 and 45-foot setbacks. And in this case, the rear yard is kind of abutting up against, it's not other residential properties back there, so.
So it's the same or greater?
Right.
Okay. And just one other about the zone itself. This applies only to IL2 zones, not IL1 or 3. There are other industrial zones in town.
And it's with the new language, it's just this particular IL2 zone in the Reservoir, Lindeman, Old Town Road area, Cambridge, yeah.
All right.
It's just that section.
That's all. Thank you.
Mr. Cousins, anything? Mr. Kroll, anything? Ms. Delvecchio? Ms. Hall? Mr. Silver? I'm good. All right, staff, anything to add? No. Nope, all right. I'll take a motion to close. Ms. Delvecchio, second. Mr. Silver, all in favor, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I voted with your finger there, Mr. Cousins. A little effort, but I counted it. All right. Okay, at this time, I will take, I'm going to let Mr. Cordone read and clarify the amendments to the application as presented. So then we can take an amendment as amended. Yeah, I was going to do it all in one shot.
So, Mr. Chairman, if someone could make a motion to approve the application, including the following amendment. Section 4.2.2 shall add the language after the IL2 zone south of the Merritt. And Mr. Lebrandi, should it be east of Route 25 or west of Route 25?
The development is east.
East of Route 25.
Yes.
And east of Route 25.
Okay.
With the further amendment, section 4.2.4, to include the language after minimum setbacks, not including balconies and exterior architectural features attached to the building and within 5 feet of the building.
Point of clarification,
It's
Mr. Cordone.
it's
Sorry,
west.
It's west.
It's
I was
west,
just
I'm
gonna
sorry.
say, yeah.
Excuse me.
Thank you. That's why we work together. Thank you, Mr. Silber. So, the point of clarification, 4.2.2 will have the language south of the Merritt and west of Route 25. The amendment to 4.2.4 is as stated. And in the 5th paragraph, after elevator, adding the word and stairway. In the 6th paragraph, deleting language age restricted to residents 55 years old or older, and adding the word projects. And that concludes the amendments.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the application as so amended now? Anybody? Mr. Silver, is there a second? Ms. Delvecchio? Are there any further questions on the amendment itself or the changes, the amendment or the application? No? Okay, so I will take a motion to approve stating that P and Z says the text amendment to the regulations complies with our comprehensive plan of development, and the effective date would be 2/25/25. All those in favor, aye. 1, 2, 3. All those against? 1, 2. Passes 3-2.
Thank you.
Okay. Number 2, text amendment, application 2105-2125, Reservoir Avenue LLC is requesting to create Article 2, Section 2.8, Workforce Residence District Overlay Zone and Residence A Zone. Construct residential units for workforce housing. Copy of regulation on file with Trumbull P&Z office. Clerk, file 24-21, continued from December and January's meetings. Mr. Bellis.
Yes, Attorney Stephen Bellis. I represent the applicant. It was similar to the, I made my presentation in December. I think we also had waited for 2 of the members to join.
Right. So I'll ask the same question. Mr. Cousins, have you prepared yourself to be able to vote tonight?
I did, and I'm ready to participate.
Mr. Silber? Okay. Do you have anything you would like to add at this point?
No, I think I gave the revisions to you all last time, and so there's no revisions since then.
Okay. All right. Is there anybody from the public who'd like to speak for or against this application before we close the hearing? No? Staff, any further comments?
No, nothing is.
No? None? Okay. You give him something?
Mr. Chairman, just if we go to a motion to approve, there will be text amendments that we need to add, but I'll wait to do that if that's the case.
Okay. All right. I'll take a motion to close the hearing then. Ms. Delvecchio, is there a second? Looks like we're relying on this side of the room tonight. Now, Mr. Silber, all in favor? Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, closing the hearing. Okay. All right. So, at this time, I will, for purposes of moving forward, take a motion to approve going forward. For discussion, is there a motion to approve going forward? Yep. Ms. Delvecchio, is there a second? Mr. Silber? Okay. Discussion. Any commissioners want to discuss?
Through the chair. All right, let's get the first question out of the way. Would this count toward affordable housing credits?
So that is part of the beginning of this application that had a little bit of confusion and clarification as it went through. This presentation, as I saw it initiated with comments of that this effort was part of a Hartford initiative, and they were looking to bring it into Trumbull. And then there was a discussion on a range of 60 or 80% to 120% of the median income, but it would still apply to our numbers for affordable housing. And when I questioned the applicant how that could work, and we would need proof, and we were told that there were emails from some agencies that lent some clarification. We were never provided those emails or that clarification, but the applicant did come back and change the percentages to all fall underneath within the guidelines of what the 830G statutes already state, right? So in its simplest form, this seems to be a reimagining of 830G under a different name with clarification that could be on any 1 acre property in this type of zone in Trumbull. Now, with that being said, the applicant also then further another meeting or two in, thanked Trumbull for participating with them so they could take this as an example to Hartford, which was kind of the reverse of what we were told at the first meeting, made it sound like it was a Hartford initiative. Then the discussion became that what Trumbull was working with them to do was going to be brought to Hartford. Kind of changed the scope a little bit in the middle of their application. So what we have in front of us is an application that creates a terminology called workforce housing that provides percentages of allocations to the building of the number of units that are going to comply with the 830G program. So that's what we have in front of us.
Thank you. So, sure.
I think this is for Jim, but is there any state statute that uses the phrase workforce housing?
I believe that there are state statutes that use workforce housing. I can't cite the exact one, but it's with respect, I think, mostly to the financing of projects. So government funding or bonds or grants. I can't speak more to it than that, but I believe that that's what was the sort of the genesis of the idea behind this text amendment, was just they were going to sort of tap in to those things. And I think reference was made to that probably in the preamble of the text too. You could see that there. But that's different than counting towards affordable housing, which is what we did clarify, that's what the applicant did do in the last meeting, was clarify that it would count towards affordable housing. We did make sure that that was going to be the case.
Any more?
Just a couple. This application would allow anybody with the relevant amount of acreage, which I believe is one or more, to build such a development in any Residence A zone, but only those, I believe, within 100 feet of an IL2 zone, correct? 100 yards, okay, 300 feet. Okay, so there is a stripe of land out there bordering IL2 zones that this is allowed to be in. Now, in the future, it's unlikely that new industrial zones are going to be created. It seems like we're steering away from them. However, they could be. So if somebody were to create a new industrial zone in the future, the single A areas around it would magically become eligible for this. Is anybody going to put an IL2 zone somewhere? Probably not, but you could. So there is no limit to where these could be built in the future. Now, it's only supposed to be in the areas close to a Residence A. We've all agreed that industrial zones are potential places to create housing. Now, I just voted against one, but I nonetheless agree that they're valid to come before us. And residence zones are really cool to live in. That's what they're called, residence zones. So I have not heard a sufficient explanation why, and this will be my final question, why is this type of overlay zone in such a very narrow and specific place, only in 300 feet in A, Residence A, within 300 feet of an IL2 zone? Why, if it's so great, then why don't we expand it to the industrial zones? Why not expand it to all residence zones if it's so great?
It's clearly scripted for the property that they intend to use it on Reservoir Avenue.
Right, but
The same way other applicants come in with scripted changes to see whether it can apply to their property, they first have to do the text amendment. This commission, you're asking the right question.
Right,
it's the commission's responsibility to say, does this text amendment, as it's written, benefit Trumbull as well as the community and the applicant if the change is made and the impact it would cause? That's what we have to do in every one of these applications.
right, so I guess it comes down to where is a suitable place to build high-density developments? If the Residence A zone, by definition, is not, because it's a single-family zone, and industrial zones, we've considered it, are we now effectively expanding the industrial zone? Because we're letting them build what they just got approved for in the last application, except, okay, it's not 55 plus, it's workforce, it's this, it's that, it's high density, whatever the demographic income or age of the occupants. At what arbitrary line do we decide, hey, this is a good place to build apartments? Because right now it seems to have, by historical accident, been the industrial line.
The answer to your question is on a case-by-case basis, as is happening now. That's the right question, but the answer is case-by-case, and we have to analyze the impact that any presentation of a text amendment would cause, which is what we're doing now. You're going back up to 10,000 foot. When would it happen? It's happening now. We have to judge this one and its potential impact.
So we need to judge if single A zones, not industrial zones, if single A zones, regardless of how close they are to the IL2 no man's land, which is apparently what they're calling it here, because they're saying, hey, look, if it's near industrial, it's okay. Anywhere else, we got to protect. But if it's near an industrial zone, go nuts. So is that where we should have this type of housing? Maybe, maybe not.
Mr. Cousins. Ms. Delvecchio.
And again, this goes to what Commissioner Deacon said, is where else can this apply in town to confirm that it's just this one spot? I guess that's a question for Rob. Like what other Residence A zones are within an IL2?
Within an IL2?
That
Within the
fits
range of the
within the range of the IL2.
How many
so
A
those
zones
two zones
border
are we
IL2
just
zones?
so those two, well, the one on the Trumbull Monroe line, that's all industrial, and then there's residential across the street, but I don't think that that may reach it. This location, yes, there is a budding residential. These are the only, all the way up to the north and all the way out down to the south. Those are the two IL2 zones.
Okay. And the other thing, and I've said this from the start, and I'm going to go back to it again, is it just to me is it's not really, I guess it's clear, but maybe I don't see it as clear. He has the other part of it. It's a minimum of 1 acre, maximum of 5 acres, maximum of 50 units may be permitted on any one application. So 50 units could go on anything between 1 and 5 acres, but what's to stop if you have 3 acres to divide it and have 150 units? That to me, there's a clarification
Well, there has
yeah.
to be specific requirements to make a buildable lot too, such as frontage. So most of these parcels, they have the limited amount of frontage for them being approved. I've never seen one with an excessive amount of frontage unless it's a corner lot. Other than that, I don't. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Silver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is for Rob also. So is that parcel you're referring to up on near the Monroe border, is that Residence A? And let me just refresh myself. Residence A is the half acre, is that right?
Yes. So the only residential to the north that abuts the IL2 zone is the age-restricted development off of Spring Hill Road.
So that's not Residence A, so it wouldn't qualify anyway.
No. That is Residence A.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I'm just okay.
Yeah, so Residence A is along the spine of it, and then it gets bigger further south. That's where most of the IL2 is surrounded by a residential.
Okay. Just one to respond to Commissioner Deacon. I think it's probably not a bad idea to start in one place, which is what they're trying to do, which is the way the regulation is crafted, the amendment is crafted. So, maybe at some point down the road it expands into the next logical space. So I'm not as concerned about that as you are. So.
We did do our study there as well too. So, I think we did discuss in that study different types of housing as well too within that whole area. So all the way down to the down reservoir. So.
Anything else, Mr. Silver? Yeah, this is rare for me. I appreciate all the effort and everything that the applicant did, but I am not in support of this because I think it's a little too intense, and I think it's a replication of 830G, which already exists. And I know that Trumbull is striving for 55 and over developments, and that's what the town needs and is short supply of. And I think this is very intense for an A zone with the numbers that exist. So I'm currently not in favor of it as it stands, and the way it was presented and fed to us and modified and changed as it went along. So anyway, that's my position. So I'm going to call the vote if anybody has any other further comments.
Mr. Chairman, if the motion is going to have an affirmative vote, we do need to consider some text amendments to it that were presented in the last meeting. If it's not going to have an affirmative vote, then we don't need to do that. But that's
So you need to say them before we take the vote, though, right?
well, we probably need an amendment to the
All right.
current
So,
motion.
I'm going to ask Attorney Cordone to read the amendments that he's proposing, the staff is proposing to this. If in fact it does pass, it would be as amended. We'll work on that. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So these were the amendments that were presented in the January meeting by the applicant. They'd also had input from town staff. You should have these before you. So the motion would be to amend section 2.82, letter 3E, little I, deleting the word one lot and adding application in the WFRD zone. The amendment to section 2.82, 3I, little I, deletes the sentence, there must be a minimum of 60% one-bedroom studios, and adding there may only be studios, one-bedroom, and two-bedroom units. And section 2.84, revising the language as presented to reflect that 30% of the total units will be designated as affordable, earning 80% of the area median income, and that they must be deed restricted for a 40-year period and must otherwise comply with Connecticut law so that the affordable units would count towards the 10% affordable goal. The language as presented in the January meeting. That's the amendment.
Okay, so I'll take a motion to amend the original application as stated by Attorney Cordone. Mr. Vecchio, seconded by Mr. Silva. All those in favor to amend the original application? Aye. The original. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. Those against? 1 against. Okay. So now we have the original application and amendment as amended to be voted on.
Through the chair.
Yes, sir.
If a commissioner wanted to vote against this, what's the proper way to do so? Make a motion to approve and then vote against it, or make a motion to deny?
So I've brought that up over my tenure here. The way that it has been done is a motion to approve, and then it's either approved or it's denied. Very rarely has someone come and everyone's against it and say, I make a motion to deny, right? That's very rarely happened. It always is stated as a motion to approve, so anyone who doesn't want to approve it just doesn't vote aye when I call for the vote. Those in favor, you just don't vote for it. And then I say those opposed, that's when you raise your hand. It's just a matter of style. If you had said, I'd like to make a motion to deny, then if somebody seconded it, that's what our discussion would have been on. It's not right or wrong, it's just the way that this commission has operated for 3+ decades. I inherited it. Okay, so now we're going to call the question. All right? All those in favor, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I didn't know I thought we were still in a discussion period. So I want to just understand one thing that you said. You're opposed to it because of the density and because it replicates 830G.
Correct.
So what I was coming at it
and it's on 1 acre properties that are near IL2 zones
Yeah.
in an A zone.
Yeah. What I want to understand is why that doesn't seem to you to be incrementally more control over 830G than 830G, if that makes sense, right? This is effectively 830G, but now we have a regulation on the books that gives us incrementally more control. Am I missing, or is that
No,
not?
there is incremental control, but in an A zone, and with that intensity in an A zone. I'm not saying that this might not work if it was in an IL2 zone or some other type of zone, but it's in an A zone. That's part of my problem, because any 1 acre in an A zone that's near an IL2 zone, and it's a horse of a different color, but it's still the same horse.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, but if you look across the street, across Reservoir Avenue with all those apartments,
Right.
and you look at 10 Trumbull, those are all, they might have been A zones in the
Right.
past. So
Yeah, 830G could go anywhere too.
830G.
That's where we're just they're restricting it.
Right. So We're good. Any more comments?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All those in favor of, go ahead.
Just after our other discussion, I don't think anybody made the formal motion.
No, it's, we've already passed the motion to approve. We've already passed the motion to amend it. We are now going to take the vote on the original amendment as amended by Mr. Cordone's presentation. This is the final vote. You're either for or against it. This is it. All right, any further questions? Hearing none. All those in favor of passing this application as amended, say aye. 1. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. Motion fails.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, it is 9:10, and we have, these three all go together. We're gonna take 5 or 10 minutes right now. If we can get back in 5, good, otherwise it's 10. We're on a break, please, thank you. Okay, we are back on the record. So, for those out here in the audience, the next three applications, number 3, 4, and 5, are related. So I'm going to read them all. We're going to hear them all presented at once, and then we will segregate them at the end and vote on them independently. Number 3, text amendment. Applicant, Trumbull Gas Realty LLC, is requesting to create Article 2, Section 3.7 Main Street Service Zone of the Town of Trumbull zoning regulations, copy regulation on file at Trumbull P&Z office, Town Clerk, file 2503. Number 4, zone change, 6159 Main Street and part of 6175 Main Street. Applicant, Trumbull Gas Realty LLC, is requesting a zone change to the properties located at 6159 Main Street and part of 6175 Main Street from Residence A to Main Street Service Zone pursuant to Article 2, Section 3.7 of the Town of Trumbull zoning regulations, file 2504. Number 5, 6159 Main Street and part of 6175 Main Street. Applicant, Trumbull Gas Realty LLC, is requesting a site plan approval for a gasoline filling station and convenience store for the properties located at 6159 Main Street and part of 6175 Main Street pursuant to Article 2, Section 3.7.1.1 of the Town of Trumbull zoning regulations, file 2505. Name and address for the record, and then I'm going to let Rob talk.
John Nuff, 135 Broad Street, Milford, Connecticut, on behalf of...
Mr. Lebrandi, you want to give us a staff report in an effort to help streamline Mr. Nuff's presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, so this application is 3 separate applications. There is a site plan, a text amendment, and a zone change, I believe. So what I would just like to do is just give a review of what is currently there and what they're proposing there right now, as well as just stating that they did get their text amendment revisions. Our text amendments were approved by the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments and MetroCog. That they said there's no regional impact. They did go in front of the Inland Wetlands Commission and received approvals from them as well too. They are also in the process of purchasing a portion of this property from the Town of Trumbull. I believe if this application is approved, they will move forward to that finalization process. And I believe the attorney or their engineer will show the location of where they're going to buy a portion of the town property.
Hold on a second. We don't need to see the legend. If you want to just make it larger so we can see more of the picture. Yeah, keep it. There you go. That's good. If we need the legend, we'll ask. But you go ahead, put it back higher. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Huh? Oh, he'll put it up after. This is still live TV, so he's going back and forth to the cameras. Mine's not the live TV. It's what he sees. Go ahead.
Okay, so currently the property is a existing gas station with service bays. There are 4 existing pump sites on the property. It does have access to Main Street and Lake Ave. There is a 3-way stoplight at this location. The new convenience store would not have a service bay, but it would have just a standard convenience. In there, the building is proposed to be 2,960 square feet with a deli area. The 4 pumps will remain. There will be 2 enclosed dumpsters. There will be 2 EV charging stations, 16 parking spaces total, 1 handicapped. Just a few things with this project. We did review this with staff a couple. They did review this with staff a couple times. We met with their engineers, their architects, their attorney. To come up with a regulation as well too for this. The regulation was, I don't believe to be site specific, but to clean up some areas along Main Street that are considered pre-existing non-conforming. That I believe this commission at one time talked about making them conforming. There's a few other gas stations, one a little further up, and actually 2 a little further up, but one that has the possibility to utilize this regulation, and there's 2 other ones, or 1 other one further south that's already been developed. So I think just looking at this parcel being a brand new building with new pumps, a new parking location is definitely positive. Good landscaping as well too. Just a few things to add to the site plan. Let's see. So I would like to see the extent of the sidewalk where possible start at Lake Ave. I'd like to see a bike rack location. I don't know if we can, but just to prohibit no clothing bins. I'd like to see a location for ice and propane location so it doesn't obstruct the sidewalks. The photometric plan that was submitted does not show any light pollution. And the utilities on the roof, we did discuss that with the architect, and they did screen them so they're not visible from the residents to the far back. And there's some, I believe, soundproofing with that fencing as well too. There was a traffic impact analysis done by Benesh and Associates. The current roadway can accommodate the new numbers. The new numbers would be 81 cars in the AM and 89 in the PM. Other than that, there is, I believe the police commission did talk about putting a hashed way crosswalk along Main Street where there's an opening. I believe that's something that DOT has to approve because this is a state road. Other than that, I would ask as well too for the EV charging stations that are along Main Street, that bollards be along Main Street to obstruct any cars from hitting those charging stations. Other than that, I think this application is in good shape, and I recommend this commission approve this. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Okay, that was really helpful, and we will be as quick as we possibly can. So, for the record, John Nuff on behalf of Trumbull Gas Realty, LLC. This is owner of the property at 6159 Main Street, the corner of Lake. Obviously, it features currently an existing gas station and a three-bay repair building that's sort of brick and sort of functionally obsolete and unattractive. So we're also the contract purchaser of a portion of the property next door that you see here cross-hatched in blue. This is just the area where our proposed parking is going to be. We were originally under contract to purchase the entirety of the town parcel, and then the decision was made that the town only wanted to convey to us that which we needed and nothing more than that. And so at no reduction to the purchase price, we limited our proposed purchase to just that crosshatch area, and we'll be submitting a lot line adjustment plan should this get approved. Simply, the purpose of these applications is to permit my client to completely redevelop the property and improve it from literally every perspective: aesthetically, landscaping, environmentally, stormwater, wetlands, every possible way. So specifically, we're going to eliminate the existing building and replace it with a very attractive retail store with a residential New England look. We're going to eliminate the curb cut closest to Turney Place. There'll be one curb cut on Main, one curb cut on Lake. We're going to be adding a robust amount of landscaping throughout the site, providing stormwater treatment where currently there is none. We're going to be protecting the nearby wetlands. As Rob mentioned, we have unanimous approval from the Inland Wetland Commission in December, and then also remediate the existing contamination on the site, and that's currently underway and nearly done at a very, very significant cost. So all those things are really wonderful, but the challenge was how to do that. And so, as Rob said, we had a number of meetings with Rob and Attorney Cardone and Rena to figure out what is the best possible way of achieving these really positive benefits for this property in a way that matches your regulations and matches the state statute, as well as how do we figure out how to park for this site. The parking was easy because we're going to park on the town property, and the zoning was simply to create a new zone, the Main Street Service Zone, and that was a name that was recommended by Rob, and we appreciate that. Rather than try and shoehorn ourselves into a BC or other zone, is to create a new zone that not only we could utilize, but also other properties could as well. So this is, I can zoom in a little bit more. So this is a survey of the existing site. The existing gas station building is in this location. The pumps are here, and this is the parcel that we would be acquiring from the town. Yep.
Can you just, can you show the entrance and exit? You said there's only one?
Yeah, so
I'm a fan of the
actually,
two
yeah.
entrances. You know.
So
Usually gas stations have two entrances, one in like,
Correct. So
or one in.
currently, there are three. There's a one on Main Street near the town property. There's another one on Main Street across from Turney, and there's also one on Lake. And we're going to be closing this one that's closest to the lights, which is obviously typically a very beneficial thing. You want to close curb cuts close to a traffic signal.
And you're making the other curb cut wider, so it's
Correct.
easier to in and out?
Here is our zone change map. We are only changing the zone of our property as well as the portion of the property we are acquiring from the town. The town property will remain Residence A. It also features a lot of wetlands and water courses, so there's really very little that anything can happen to that property. And frankly, you know, that property only has value to us. And so at the cost of $150,000, I think the town is getting, frankly, a very good deal. I have submitted a copy of the proposed regulation amendment for the Main Street service zone. It's very straightforward. It only applies to facilities that are non-conforming gas stations, and as a way of encouraging their rehabilitation. Building lot and minimum lot size, height, setbacks, all those things are very standard with your regulations. The one thing to highlight is we do require a 20-foot landscape buffer along the residential zone, and everything else is very standard with and consistent with your other regulations. So without belaboring any further, I'm going to introduce Ryan Scrittoro from Benesh Engineering, who will walk you through the site plan.
Yeah.
And then we're going to hear from Jason Davis, who will show you the really wonderful architecture of the proposed convenience store.
While you're making that presentation on the fly, just mention how you'd incorporate a sidewalk. The whole
curb, yeah,
The
all
whole
around
curb.
Lake Avenue, basically mean, because
Yep.
there's already a sidewalk along Main Street that we're
yeah,
just
the
tying in.
whole
Yep.
length of your property.
Yep, not a problem. Thank you, John. For the record, my name is Ryan Scrittoro. I'm with Benesh. I'm a professional engineer. Our address is 120 Hebron Avenue in Glastonbury, Connecticut. I'm actually going to skip over just the existing conditions because I think it's been reiterated a couple times at this point. As John had mentioned, there are 3 curb cuts. We're closing the one that's across from Turney Place and keeping the other 2 and just modifying them accordingly to make sure they have enough room to accommodate the incoming traffic. Just for the record, we have submitted to Connecticut DOT to the district for comment for the encroachment permit. That usually goes ongoing while we're performing this operation with you guys at planning and zoning.
We only require all commissions previous to us. Every application has a DOT process after us, and that's fine.
No, and I understand. I just wanted to let the commission know that, you know, that is ongoing. They have essentially the last say in the curb cut access along Main Street. So they are in receipt of the plans and will comment accordingly. In front of you right now is a schematic diagram of the proposed plan. As you can see, the curb cut along the across from Turney Place has been closed. We are showing the sidewalk along the entire length of Main Street. As per recommendation by the city staff, we have no objection to bringing that up along Lake Avenue and kind of bringing that up to the adjacent parcel. There's a small jog in the parcel that just basically allows for that curb cut access. So we're limited in how far we can bring it up, but we have no objection to bringing it up Lake Avenue. As John had mentioned,
Does that sidewalk stop before that landscape thing, or it goes all the way to the light?
it goes all the way to the light. As you can see, the crosswalk. We just infilled the gaps there as we closed the curb cut. So
Yeah.
we're showing proposed sections, but it is all the way along the entire frontage.
Just for reference, I'm the one who made them do it across the street, and people do walk on it.
Oh, yeah.
You know what
No,
I mean?
absolutely.
People
We
are in
have
the
no
street,
issue
they
with it.
jump on the sidewalk, and they come back. So
Absolutely.
more sidewalks we can add, you got to start somewhere.
Yep, not a problem. And also, just so you're aware, the curb cut that we are closing is in front of the stop bar at the light. So it makes sense to actually close that curb cut because you'd be entering into traffic kind of at that signal.
I'm more concerned with traffic flow when you close it, but as long as you're widening the one that's remaining, makes sense.
Yep, we are accommodating that. As John had mentioned, the parking is to the right of the page, and then we pushed back the canopy and the pumps to allow for a bypass lane closest to Main Street. So now, for once on this site, there actually is the ability to kind of circumvent the pumps if they are, congested at that time. Again, there are 4 pumps going to be proposed, just like there are currently. The proposed building has been pushed back just far enough to allow for the setbacks and also to accommodate the additional space with the canopy itself. The tanks are located to the south or page left of the dispensers. The tanker movement would come in off of Main Street from the south, enter in off the Lake Avenue, curb cut, fill up, and then exit back onto Main Street and exit out.
Did I hear there's electrical charging?
There are 2 electrical EV charging stations. They will be level 2. They're located over in this area right here. We also have accommodated for conduits to allow for an additional 2 in future use, but those will be level 2 chargers that we're committing to right now. John had mentioned the dumpsters are located over to the north side of the site, and everything located on the city property as of right now that we're looking to acquire would only be parking. There would be no fuel dispensing equipment or any type of monitoring on that property alone. It will all be on the existing gas station facility as it stands right now. All of the gas station pieces that we're putting on are all state-of-the-art, double wall, fiberglass with brine-filled tanks, all with remote sensors that detect any type of leak detection. Same thing with the piping that connects from the tanks to the dispensers themselves. The dispensers have underground sumps with their fiberglass with leak detection. It's basically a state-of-the-art system that if anything leaks, if any type of disturbance happens, it's notified to the attendant in the convenience store, and they have the ability to shut down the entire system. So it's a complete state-of-the-art system. In terms of stormwater, as John had mentioned, we are going to be in compliance with the 2024 Connecticut stormwater regulations. The current site does not have any treatment on it whatsoever. We are completely retrofitting that and adding in treatment going to the Lake Avenue side, and then adding in a treatment train as well as an underground detention system on the town-owned parcel that would treat the stormwater prior to discharge to the wetlands located to the northwest of the site. So essentially, we'd have clean runoff coming off the site that would mitigate any type of contaminations or any type of sediment that would accumulate in the structures themselves. The slab underneath the canopy itself has PLBs, which would contain any type of small spill that may occur. They would also have spill prevention kits located on site for any type of minor drippage that may happen from somebody dispensing fuel at their car itself. And with that, I think the only other thing I would like to bring up is the lighting, as we have proposed, is dark sky compliant. As city staff has mentioned, it has no light pollution going off the property itself. As you can see from here, the planting plan is quite robust for a gas station, providing screening not only on the east but also the west side. We added some additional screen plantings and wetland type vegetation per the direction of the Wetland Commission when we were in front of them fairly recently. And with that, I will pass it along to Jason to kind of finish up his part. Sorry.
All right, good evening, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Jason Davis, principal with QA&M Architecture in Farmington at 195 Scott Swamp Road. I am a licensed architect in the state of Connecticut. So I'm going to start here with, just to give everybody a little context, I know the building is going under remediation now, so there's a lot of fencing and there's some things that have been torn up. So this is just to give everybody a kind of refresher what it looked like currently. Main view upper left is looking from the intersection with Lake Avenue at the site. And then some other shots, the upper right being the existing canopy, lower left being the current building now, which is your typical 1950s service station, just a brick and block building with the 3 service bays on the right. And then bottom right being some of the parcel acquired from the town in a view of the building, existing building in the background there. One more shot, again, just giving a little more context of what this existing building looks like. We did look initially to try to add onto this or basically to clean it up, and it didn't make a lot of sense to do that. And so I'm happy to be able to present to you what I think is a much better product with the new building we're proposing. So I will go to, so these are the elevations for the building. The top elevation is the elevation facing Main Street. So again, trying to keep in the residential context, we have punch windows rather than strip windows. We have a real hip roof, not any kind of mansard roof, with a cupola, clapboard siding, and then a stone veneer base, cultured stone, with a cast stone sill to give some robustness to the bottom of the structure. The middle is what faces the back, so that's the rear elevation. So as Rob mentioned, so what I did is I created a well on the roof to screen the mechanical equipment. So any rooftop equipment will be placed in this well. And then actually the fence you see there would actually further screen that from view through the woods from any abutters in the back. So this does two things. It gives the ability to have all of your equipment located on the roof, nothing can be on the ground, no condensing units, anything like that. Also screens them from any visibility. And then also it's contained and gives a noise buffer as well. Bottom left elevation is what faces the parking lot. And then bottom right is what basically tucks up next to the existing building, which is also owned by the applicant. So what these are a couple renderings of the site. This is looking at the intersection with Lake Avenue. The existing building to the left is what we're adding, close to where we, as John said, we're tucking the new building kind of back into that corner. So the bulk of the additional square footage is sort of back and to the left of this, where the existing building was. I will say that this is a Revit model of the site, so it's very accurate as far as the landscaping, curb cuts, the building, everything like that. So this is not an artist's rendition. This is actually a real model of the site as we're presenting it. Next is just a view coming in from the curb cut that will remain. You can see in the bottom corner over here that where we're adding the sidewalk, where we're filling in the curb cut to be removed. And then the new building on the site, landscaping, and then the parking area that's kind of on the left over there, or on the right, sorry. So this is another view looking from Lake Avenue, from where the existing curb cut is at the site. And again, you can see where we really try to tuck the new building back from the building that's on Lake Avenue. And what we did basically is we maintained a minimum distance for code for the buildings not to have fire-rated exterior walls. So we did think about that, and we exceeded that slightly. So while the buildings are close together, there aren't considerations for fire for the exterior walls.
You have, go back for a second. So when you pull in on the right side of the white car that's at the pump, right? Do you have any plans to mark the darker pavement for no parking? I know I'm guilty of the gas station people that aren't getting gas, do the park and run inside. It looks like because of your new drive path. Whoa, go back.
I was trying to go back to one of the site plans.
No. I was comfortable where you were.
Okay.
Yeah, right there is good. So if you're coming in from Main Street, you're likely coming out on Lake, right? So you're going to need to keep that drive path open to the right of that white car, because people are going to pull in, like, take, for example, the Citgo up here, right across from Dunkin' Donuts, right? People will pull in and they'll park on the left of the pumps and run in the store.
Yeah,
but there's enough room for people to park and drive out on both sides. It looks like you're going to need to keep that drive path open for people in one way and out the other. It doesn't look like you're going to have that.
No problem putting striping there for no parking.
Yeah, not necessarily across the whole thing, but
yeah,
I'm just forecasting. I think you're going to need that drive path open at all times, right?
Correct. Yeah, that is. You are the individual that I don't like at gas
stations.
Yeah,
that's me.
Parks.
That's me, baby.
But yes, we have no qualm with striping that for no parking.
Yeah, I'm with the other 50 people in on the Merritt Parkway in New Rochelle, pulling right over there on the no parking strips. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Right. No, I park right on the no parking signs. Yeah. Go right ahead.
All right, I just have one more image here that's kind of like a bird's eye view of the site looking back towards Lake Avenue. I think it gives you kind of the whole context. Again, the right side being the parcel acquired from the town, the screened dumpster enclosure, the parking that's screened from the street, and then also we have screening in the back that's open to the wetlands that's back there to give that some additional screening. So this kind of gives you, I think, a good context overall of the site. And welcome any questions.
The renderings that you guys are able to provide is phenomenally insane. It's fantastic compared to the evolution of how we got here to be able to see a drawing like this of what it's going to look like.
By the way, I should have mentioned after Rob gave his report that we have no objection to any of the conditions that he proposed either, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Commissioners.
Yeah, my concern is with the very particular direction of this zone. I'm wondering why we're going this direction when more general options exist that I think accomplish everything you're interested in. We have a commercial zone, we have a Long Hill Green zone. Why are we creating this new special zone for this special project when we could already put you in it?
You know, so the town's regs have a lot of flexibility, but no matter what other avenue we try to go down, we inevitably ran into a roadblock. So you have like the adapted reviews, you have a switch to one non-conforming use to another, you have the BC zone, but none of those really created an opportunity for us to do what we're doing. And it came out through various meetings with staff, and believe me, we scoured the regulations to do this in a different way. And it came through with various meetings with staff is that there are other locations that are similar to ours that this would create an opportunity to correct. You have a number of gas stations in Residence A zones that are not conforming, and the owner literally has handcuffs because there's nothing they can do because you can't expand the nonconformity. And so this allows not only us to beautify our site and improve it environmentally, but it allows other folks to do that as well.
Yeah, thanks. So why can't we put you in a BC zone, for example?
I think
2 acre minimum.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And setbacks, I mean, BC zone contemplates a much larger parcel than what we're dealing with.
Right, right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And
Thank you.
then the other thing is that people say, well, you're switching to the BC zone, you can have all these other uses. We want to limit to just, gas station convenience store use so people know exactly what it is that we're proposing.
Yeah.
Mr. Crow.
No questions from me. Thank you.
Mr. Deacon.
Thank you, sir. I think everybody agrees this should be for Main Street only, but it doesn't appear that it actually says that anywhere in the regulations. It's probably something we can add very easily. And Long Hill Green Zone is the name of that too, but it's not limited to Long Hill Green.
I don't know that we need to limit it because, to his point, we can decide if we want to apply it somewhere else. But one of the things that I know that this commission has adopted is because we've had so many non-conforming uses come before us, if something's been non-conforming for 30 or 40 years and worked, they should be allowed to have that and be changed to that zone, right? There are very few zones that comply, as Mr. Cousins brought up. Why can't it be this? This would be one of those zones that could apply to a different area because they've proven, that it's there. It's this commission's discretion to apply it or not in the future.
Okay,
I don't
yes.
think we need to limit it because then we'd have to modify the language.
Right.
I'd rather modify an application than the language.
Right, so if someone else wanted to take advantage of this who wasn't on Main Street, it's still a zone change, it's a legislative act, and you have complete discretion to do whatever you want to do, either approve or deny it.
Okay, yeah, that was my only concern because it also says how far back, I wanted to know how far back previous is. It says that places that were previously occupied by non-conforming motor vehicle uses. At what point? I mean, somebody could come and say, we laughed, but there was there a gas station in 1920 right there? Well, look, it says right here, previously occupied, but we still have the legislative capacity to deny that. Okay.
Correct.
I just want to make sure nothing's by right. Something silly that we laugh at now ends up becoming
Not
a
as long
problem.
as you're here.
No, and
Works for me.
And by the way, so 3711A, the principal use is located on property containing a pre-existing non-conforming. So it has to be presently containing.
Okay. That's satisfactory then. That's all.
Good? Ms. Hall?
I have no questions, thank you.
Ms. Delvecchio?
I think the only thing is, I like that you're going from 3 exit and entrances to 2, is the proximity of the one on Lake Avenue to the light when this is going to be a more highly trafficked facility than it was as a gas station. And I'm sure that's something that you guys talked about in your traffic study, but that was my only wondering, as you're pulling out and it's so close to the light, how congested can that be?
I'll let Ryan address that, but here's the issue on traffic. We all know that gas stations and convenience stores are the ultimate pass-by trip. I don't know of anyone that makes a special trip to go out and get gas, except maybe there's going to be a 2-foot snowstorm and people say, I need to get gas before. So it's really only traffic that's already on the roads. It's probably only traffic that's probably people who are visiting the site currently. So, I mean, with that, I mean, I think people will be, if they want to continue south down Main Street, they may be either circling back. I mean, frankly, I think I would come back out into Main Street and circle around, and that's what Ryan said, that you now have that opportunity to do that. But I think there is sufficient queuing for a few cars on Lake before you get to that site.
And I ask, on compounding on her, or adding to her question, you're not changing that exit entrance. It's already been the one that's been in use for years.
Correct.
So, okay.
Yeah, do you want to add anything else?
Yeah, the only other thing I would add is, if I can go back really fast, our space along Lake Avenue is limited. So we really couldn't do anything to improve that area and that egress. We do think that it's a more viable option for people to get back out and get on, back onto Main Street, rather than having to come out the Main Street exit. So it's a viable, very well, located driveway apron at this point. There is enough room for queuing along Lake Avenue, and the light timing, signal timing does allow for that to actually discharge and not create a huge backup or anything of that nature.
What's that? Okay. Mr. Silver?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I had kind of the same observation as Karen did, which is you're going to have people going out onto Lake, making the left and wait at the light, and there's really no room that I can see to queue more than like one car. So if there's 2 cars waiting for the light at Lake, a car pulling out of the gas station is going to have some problems.
Well, right. So that car pulling out, if there are cars on Lake who are coming out, then they can't leave the exit from the gas station until that traffic clears on Lake.
Right.
Listen, I think people figure stuff out. If you frequent this place every morning to get your cup of coffee on your way to the Parkway, for instance, you'll probably figure, you know what? You might try that once or twice, and if the traffic is such that you can get out and make the right on red, it works. If not, you'll just circle back around. I mean, gas stations are, the ultimate convenience, and people do figure out how to maneuver around in a way that is safe and efficient. And if you can't get out, then you'll have to wait, and then you've learned.
I understand.
You'll adjust your behavior.
Yeah, and thank you for explaining that. People also make bad decisions, so they'll block the westbound on Lake so they can get to their, you know what I mean?
I'll add 2 more things. The existing gas station has 4 pumps. This one has 4 pumps. The difference is we've moved that canopy back further to give a little bit more queuing within the drive aisle.
Okay.
Also, as John had mentioned, gas stations are a convenience. People tend to learn patterns very quickly. I know myself, I only pull into right in, right out. I never cross lanes of traffic to go to a gas station. If that's the case, I go to the next gas station down the street. So you will learn that pattern very quickly. And the fact that this one already is a gas station, people are already familiar with that type of traffic pattern. We've just improved it on this site.
All right. No, thank you for that. I'm not going to belabor it because I think you're right. I just had a couple of things. One, did you folks address what MetroCog was saying about the lighting?
Right. So I'm not really sure because, we do have a photometric plan. It's all dark sky compliant, so we should be okay.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at that plan and it's all zeros at the
right, exactly.
Perimeter. Yeah. So, but maybe Rob can speak to that. Well,
MetroCog's comment about
about the lighting.
Yeah, I did take a look at the photometric plan. I don't see any light pollution beyond the property line.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's
I
fine.
think anything beyond the property line on the roads, it's maybe. No, I couldn't even think of anything there besides
who's
the light itself.
Nobody's going to care if they're on Main Street going north or south anyway, but.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple of other quick things. I like that you're surrounding the whole place with lawn, and I love the look of the sidewalk with grass on either side. I was just thinking maybe, that one strip between the sidewalk and the gas station might have some shrubbery, or at least at the corner by the egress onto Main Street. It would just sort of anchor it a little bit. And it doesn't have to be high or anything, but it might just improve the...
So you're talking this area right here?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it would improve the aesthetics to have like some kind of planting there.
We would love to. Connecticut DOT will not allow it. Every time I put plantings within that, I can propose it, but I can tell you right now, DOT always restricts that to the degree because it's on their property. I will say that we have no objection to it, and if you would like for us to add that, I can propose it to DOT, but I can tell you every time I've done it, they strike it down.
They have no design sense. But I mean, I just like that look, and I think our former colleague Tony Corey would be, like insistent on something like that. So I just try to follow his example. The other thing is, I noticed that you have 3 signs allowed on the canopy, which is fine. But one of the things that I think really adds to the aesthetic appeal of a gas station, a lot of businesses, is like right in the corner, right where Lake and Main is. If you had like a brick edifice, 6 feet high or something like that, with the sign on it there too, that might be an improvement. And my personal philosophy on signage is, a town indicates a lot about itself if it's got smaller signs on its commercial buildings. So it's just a thought there.
Okay, so there is an existing sign, pylon sign, near that corner.
Yeah.
And so we're proposing to maintain that, obviously just change the panel out. So, we're happy to take a look at it. I don't want to make it a condition of approval, but currently our plan is to maintain that pylon sign near the corner of Lake and Main and just change out the panel.
Okay, I mean, that would be, I would want to change that pylon. And if you think of the Gulf, I think it's Gulf down the block there with the cheap gas, across from Stop and Shop, they have one of those brick signs, and I think it's a sort of a classy look.
Understood.
Okay, that means you don't want it in the as a condition of approval still.
I can't, no. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so I have a few things here. I'll save my comments. Is there anybody from the public who'd like to speak for or against this application?
Briefly. Richard White, 169 Churchill Road. I'm speaking specifically about in support of the site plan approval for the gas station and convenience store on Main Street, file number 25-05. I'd like to draw your attention to the following pages from tonight's agenda. The 500-foot vicinity map on page 45, the review by MetroCog on pages 41 and 46, the review by the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments on page 42 and 47, the erosion and sediment control plan details and notes on pages 56, 57, and 58, the traffic study with full details starting on page 78, and the stormwater management plan with full details starting on page 114. All of these items are standard requirements, bread and butter for any P&Z hearing. You, planning and zoning, are the experts in town on the reason and value for each of these requirements that any business or homeowner would have to meet in order to move forward with any proposed development. I trust your judgment on this project because you have held multiple meetings, provided notice to abutters, reached out to the Council of Governments for their input, and reviewed all of the required material in support of this site plan. You are the experts, planning and zoning, not our town council, not our Board of Finance, and not voters in a referendum. Thank you for your time. Separately, I'm assuming that there would be an 824 for the sale of the town property, and that this is not that.
That already happened.
Oh, it did, sorry.
Yep. Okay, so You may.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney Nuff, the effective date, just when we go to, if the commission is inclined to improve this, we're going to set an effective date of February 25th for all three applications.
Yeah, I mean, you have to set an effective date for the zone change and the right change.
Yes.
If you feel more comfortable setting an effective date the day after for the site plan, you can do that.
Okay, that's what I was looking for. Thank you.
So I think this is a good plan, it's a good improvement, and again, the ability that you guys have to show renderings of what it's exactly going to look like is just light years of advantage of the applications in the past decade, right? So it takes away a lot of the questions when you can actually see it and then just have to imagine it. There's a couple conditions. I think I'm just going to read these to say if we're going to take a motion with the conditions, right? As long as everybody's in favor of it. The EV, huh? Yeah. All right, we'll close the hearing first, I guess. Nobody else, right? All right. Everybody all set? Any final
All set,
statement?
thank
We're
you.
good? Any commissioners need anything before we close the hearing? No? All right, motion to close. Oh, Mr. Deacon. Second. Oh, Mr. Cousins. Thanks for coming. All in favor to close? Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. So I have some of the conditions that were mentioned already, and I'm just going to read them all, and then before we take the motion, we can do it as conditioned. Yep. I am going to wait to do the conditions till number 5. All right? So, as we discussed, we just heard 3 separate applications all discussed as one. And I'll just go over it for the public really quick. For an application to work, a zone has to exist. For development, that piece of property has to be in that zone. And then to develop, you have to have an application that's approved. All right? So we have a new text amendment that's going to create a new zone that's going to go first. So I will take a motion to create the text amendment for file 2505, creating the Main Street Service Zone.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Ms. Delvecchio. Any further questions on that? Hearing none. All in favor, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it complies with our comprehensive plan of conservation and development and will be effective on 2/25. Number 4, zone change for 6159 and 6175 Main Street, file 2504, placing the service zone onto those properties. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Mr. Deacon, is there a second? Ms. Delvecchio, any further questions? Hearing none. All in favor, aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and it complies with our comprehensive plan of conservation and development and will be effective on 2/25. Now, we have number 5. There are some conditions that was mentioned by staff, and I will read them and hopefully add them to the next motion. All the EU charge stations should have bollards or hard scoping along Main Street, right? According and improved with the fire marshal and the town planner. To draw hashed crosswalks between the sidewalks per DOT. All right. To work with staff on a location of a bike rack. I don't think that would be anything major. To prohibit clothing bins on site. And ice and propane locations to not obstruct any of the sidewalks in coordination with staff. The utilities are going to be screened from the rear and in agreement to extend the sidewalk the full length of the property all the way up Lake. Okay? So at this time, I will take a motion to approve the application 2505 with the conditions as listed. Mr. Deacon, is there a second? Ms. Delvecchio. Any further questions? Yes, sir.
This is not frivolous, and I wish I had mentioned it when I was talking to the attorney, but I like their pylon sign, and I just want it, maybe they can just commit to keeping it the way it is.
I think they already did.
Did they?
They're just changing the name.
All right.
I think they did. We'll make the sign good. Rob committed. Right, Rob? All right. Rob said the
Rob,
sign's going to be good.
But, no, that's fine, that's good.
All right.
I mean, it seems frivolous and small, but it matters.
I understand your point, and we'll
I
make
think
it
they
happen.
stated that the existing square footage is going to stay the same. Is that what you're talking about, or are you talking about the design, or what?
Design is nice, the size of the brand is appropriate, and that, you know, and it's on these twin pylons holding it up. I think it looks good. You know, the gas station signs can be different. They can be 15, 20 feet high on one.
So you're saying you like it as it is, and they committed during their application that they were keeping it the way it is and only
No,
changing
they said they're
the
keeping a pylon.
Oh, they're keeping the pylons, and they're only going to change the name on the existing
All
sign.
right, okay, let's let it go. But
Right?
Yep.
You want to keep it the way it is, right? Okay. All right. Is there a motion to approve with the conditions as listed? I did that? Oh, we're at questions. Yeah, I got thrown off. Sorry. Any further questions? Not used to questions at this point. All right. Hearing none, all in favor to the application with the conditions? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Congratulations. And it is effective 2/26/25. All right. So the next bond release has been withdrawn for tonight. Is there a planner's report?
Just to update, we are in the process of picking some dates for the POCD to come in front of this commission. We have 2 meetings set up, one to present to the commission and one for approval. So we're almost at that point. We're getting their timelines and all our materials together, so hopefully in the near future we will be in front of this commission. We may have to do a special meeting for the chairman. But I guess we'll get there when we get there. So just be aware it's going to be coming up soon. Thank you.
Okay. Motion to close. Mr. Vecchio.
Approve the minutes.
The
I
minutes.
reviewed the minutes of the January 15th meeting and found them to be in their usual order and make a motion to approve.
Second. Mr. Cousins. All in favor of approving the minutes from last time? Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you. Now, motion to close back on. Same 2 people. All in favor? Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thanks for coming, Linda. Gas station.